Kamala Harris attracts some very big-name supporters as the fight for US president officially kicks off. The boss of the ABC quits just 14 months into a new contract, and Ford dumps its big plans for electric vehicles. Welcome to Fear and Greed Daily Business News. For people who make their own decisions, it is Friday, the 23rd of August, 2024. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, the main story this morning. Later today, Kamala Harris will officially accept the Democratic nomination to run for president against Donald Trump in what will be a fight between ideologies and ages, as well as conservatives and liberals.
Day 4 of the convention is already underway, and the Democrats have been able to rely on some major star power over the past couple of days, with Oprah Winfrey addressing delegates yesterday in her own hometown of Chicago, along with Bill Clinton and vice presidential nominee Tim Walz. Earlier in the convention, speakers included Barack and Michelle Obama. Oprah, I'd say, outshone Bill Clinton yesterday. She quoted the late congressman and civil rights icon John Lewis saying, "No matter what ship our ancestors arrived on, we're all in the same boat now." Oprah matters because she's a registered independent. Her appeal straddles parties. One of the best Bill Clinton lines was, and I quote, "Kamala Harris is the only candidate in this race who has the vision, the experience, the temperament, the will, and yes, the sheer joy to get something done." The one person who hasn't yet come out and endorsed Kamala Harris, who the Democrats want more than anyone else, is Taylor Swift.
Really?
Not some famous politician, Taylor Swift. She hasn't endorsed Donald Trump either. She is the influencer to end all influencers. Previously, her forays into politics have been about getting people to vote, and she did a great job doing that. Anyway, we'll wait and see. Maybe she won't come and endorse anyone, but there just seems to be a bit of a feel at the moment. Well, certainly the Democrats want her to endorse Kamala Harris because she would probably be the best possible thing that could happen to the Democrats.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because in a country where there is non-compulsory voting, that encouraging people to vote, and particularly getting an influencer like Taylor Swift to actually endorse someone, would be hugely influential, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so Forbes recently had the most influential people in America, the most influential women. I just can't quite remember who the first one was. I know Taylor Swift was number 5, Kamala Harris was number 3, but Taylor Swift is in this league of influential people. And I would say in her demographic, she'd be the most influential person.
So, Sean, now that the nominees have been endorsed by their parties, what will the election kind of be fought over now? And I suppose, does it matter to Australia?
Yeah, so turning to policy, Harris and Trump are a long way apart in economics. Trump is talking about lowering the corporate tax rate while Harris wants to lift it. Trump's talking about pushing up tariffs across the board. That wouldn't be good for Australia. The Biden administration has been against across-the-board increases in tariffs, though it has targeted China in some sectors, steel, for example. The general view in financial markets is that Trump would be better for shares. That would impact the ASX here. Harris is pushing for more government handouts and is likely to run a much more sympathetic social policy, including around housing. Harris wants to up support for education. Trump doesn't. Immigration is a difficult issue for both sides, but Trump seems to be in front on that one. He continues to take a very hard line. He isn't a fan of organisations like NATO and other alliances. The Biden administration is. Arguably, that would be worse for Australia if Trump is against alliances, although I think our relationship with the US is pretty strong. The current administration has put climate change front and centre, whereas Trump wants to relax environmental regulations. There's also big differences around areas like abortion and crime.
All right, back home again now, Sean. Local markets, how did they perform yesterday?
The S&P ASX 200 gained 0.2% to 8,027 points, marking 2 weeks of positive closes. Been quite the run. The huge jump in WiseTech Global's share price on Wednesday after its earnings announcement continued yesterday, with WiseTech up another 8%. Founder Richard White's bank balance is up well over $2 billion in the past couple of days. That's on the back of the fact that he owns 39% of WiseTech Global. The WiseTech surge helped the tech index, which was the best of the 11 indices on the ASX yesterday. Brambles was another strong performer. Some of the profit results yesterday, there were many. I'll just give a few highlights. Tech player Megaport tumbled 20% after its result missed expectations. KFC owner Collins Foods plunged 13% after it warned its profit margins will fall this financial year due to rising labour, energy and store costs. Childcare group G8 Education, it grew profits and earnings in the first half of 2024, but flagged difficult times ahead. Gold explorer Northern Star doubled its underlying full-year net profit, declared an increase in dividend. That, of course, is on the back of higher gold prices. Discount retailer The Reject Shop blamed soaring costs for a 36% drop in net profit. Retailer Beacon Lighting posted an 11% fall in net profit, in part due to higher costs, which the group blamed on inflation. Very, very mixed bunch of results yesterday.
And Sean, while we're on results, immediately after the show, stick around for a chat with Centre Group CEO Elliot Rusanow. He spoke to our friends at Ausbiz about the Westfield owners' results, about repurposing mall space previously used by David Jones, and of course about the lasting impacts of the Westfield Bondi stabbing attacks. It's actually a very wide-ranging interview, so stick around for that one. It's coming up a little bit later on. And now, thanks to Blue Chip Communication, the experts helping financial services companies market, communicate and grow. Visit bluechipcommunication.com.au. International markets, Sean, what is going on?
Oh, I forgot we had international markets this week. We've been so focused on the ASX. However, yesterday we got the minutes from the Fed Reserve Board meeting of a couple of weeks ago. Several US Federal Reserve officials acknowledged there was a plausible case for cutting interest rates at their last meeting, before the central bank's policy committee voted unanimously to keep them steady. If the data continues to come in about as expected, it's likely to be appropriate to ease policy at the next meeting, according to the minutes. Now, futures markets in the US are pricing in about 100 basis points. That's 1 percentage point of easing this year. The Fed chair is scheduled to speak on the economic outlook tonight, Australian time. We'll have all that on Monday morning, of course. Otherwise, Brent crude is trending lower while gold is hovering around the $2,500 an ounce level. Uranium price has fallen to $80 a pound. That's its lowest level since November last year. And the Aussie dollar is buying just under 67.5 US cents.
All right, still a bit to get through. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, the boss of the ABC, has quit the job just 14 months into his second 5-year term.
David Anderson yesterday emailed staff that he had quit as managing director of the national broadcaster and will leave when new management is found. It comes less than 6 months since former News Corp and Foxtel boss Kim Williams took over from Ida Buttrose as chair of the ABC. In an email, Mr. Anderson told staff, "I am grateful to Kim Williams and the board for their support and their efforts to persuade me to stay on for my full second term. I'm confident the timing is right for both me and the ABC." Certainly a surprise to everyone yesterday, but good luck to him. I think that would be one of the hardest jobs in media.
Oh, you would not be able to satisfy anybody, would you?
No. Politicians, competitors, staff, really tough job.
Sean, Super Retail Group, owner of Rebel Sport and, of course, Super Cheap Auto, posted record sales of $3.9 billion last financial year, with the automotive category being the standout.
Yes, Super Retail's BCF and outdoor wear brand Macpac reported improved trading, but Rebel's turnover fell 1% in the year to the end of June 29. Earnings fell 9% overall, reflecting higher operating costs, but the group announced a special dividend of 50 cents a share. More promising was that in the first 7 weeks of this financial year, all brands achieved sales growth. With Macpac surging 15%, Rebel was better as well. Chief Executive Anthony Herity said the consumer remains uncertain, but Super Retail's proposition, brands and its loyalty-based positioned it well against a backdrop where shoppers are carefully managing their spending. Super Retail's share price rose more than 6% yesterday.
Bank of Queensland, Sean, will sack 400 staff and acquire 114 franchised branches in a major overhaul of Australia's sixth largest bank.
Yeah, Bank of Queensland's always been very interesting because it's had this franchise model for about a decade now, and effectively it's dumping it. Chief Executive Patrick Allaway said the changes aim to simplify the bank and will cost up to $125 million to implement in an effort to make the lender profitable, or at least more profitable. Mr. Allaway said the days of rivers of gold for banks are over, and analysts said this is particularly the case for the regional banks. Profit margins are being crunched as customers shift to digital channels. Having a legacy retail banking operation and all those branches isn't something CEOs want anymore, at least they want them less. Bank of Queensland's share price fell more than 6% yesterday.
Developer Stockland built more houses than it forecast last year, settling 5,637 lots and predicting increased settlements over the medium term.
Some good news for the housing sector, Michael. Hasn't been much of that recently, so I think we should
change.
shout about this one. Yeah. The country's largest diversified developer said conditions had improved in the second half of the year, in part due to a more stable interest rate environment. Chief Executive Tarun Gupta said Stockland launched 15 new master-planned communities and land lease communities last financial year, hopes to launch another 8 new communities this financial year. Revenue fell 6% to $3 billion. Funds from operations, which is an industry measure of profit, that was down 7%. The actual net profit was off more than 30%, reflecting an increase in property devaluations. Stockland's share price rose 4%.
Japanese giant Nippon Steel says the Queensland Government's coal royalties grab influenced its decision to spend $1 billion buying a stake in Whitehaven's Blackwater coking coal mine amid rising concerns over the security of supply.
Interesting story, this one. Nippon Steel and Japanese company JFE Steel collectively bought 30% of Blackwater, giving owner Whitehaven Coal a $1.1 billion cash injection, according to a report in the AFR. Nippon Steel doesn't speak publicly very often. It came out and he said the Queensland Government's decision to raise coal royalty rates in 2022 would certainly decrease the supply of coking coal long term by disincentivising investment in new mines. The steelmaker said fears of a future supply shortage had given it a strong sense of urgency to own more of the coal mines that feed its mills. What's interesting is that Nippon Steel is basically saying because of government policy in Queensland, we think we need to own more because there's not a lot of new mines coming on board. All that came as Whitehaven reported a 72% drop in underlying profit due to lower coal prices, but the news about Nippon Steel sent its share price up 7%.
You're right, that is really interesting, that a political decision is forcing them basically to shore up their own supply chain.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I agree.
Yeah. Now, Australia's biggest private health insurer, Medibank's earnings was helped by strong growth in the number of foreign students taking out private health insurance.
But fewer permanent residents signed up for policies last year due to strong competition. Chief Executive David Koskar said industry growth would moderate this year after reporting a 14% increase in underlying net profit last financial year. There were 14,400 net new resident policyholders and 69,000 net non-resident policyholders. That, of course, reflects all the interest from students. The health insurance market remains competitive, with some insurers chasing volume rather than margins. That's according to investment analysts. Medibank's share price fell 2% yesterday.
All right, turning to international news now, and PwC China has told clients it expects Chinese authorities to hit it with a 6-month business ban that will start as early as September as part of punishment over its audit of collapsed property developer Evergrande.
The action against PwC comes after China's securities regulator in March said Evergrande had inflated its mainland revenues by almost $80 billion in the 2 years before the developer defaulted on its debts in 2021, despite PwC's China unit giving the accounts a clean bill of health. The business ban, potentially accompanied by a large fine, would be the toughest ever action by Chinese regulators against a Big Four firm, according to the Financial Times. It comes as Beijing steps up scrutiny over the role played by auditors in financial scandals, in this case in the crisis-hit property sector, which once contributed about 1/4 of the country's gross domestic product.
And I mentioned this one at the top of the show, Sean. Ford Motor is downsizing its electric vehicle plans, cancelling a large electric sport utility vehicle, saying it'll take a $1.9 billion hit in writing down the EV business.
So Ford is dumping plans for a 3-row EV SUV. Oh, I like that. Electric vehicle, sports utility vehicle. 3 seats, 3 rows, citing tough pricing pressure as automakers resort to aggressive discounts to move the EVs they've already manufactured. Ford instead will offer hybrid gas-electric versions of future large SUVs, which is a very popular vehicle category, not just in the US, but in Australia as well. If you think the Explorer and the Expedition nameplates, they're all part of that. Now, according to Dow Jones, the company's moves are the latest example of automakers unwinding EV investment plans they made years ago. General Motors last month pushed back the timeline on the opening of a suburban Detroit factory. Ford has said its EV business is on pace to lose about $5 billion this year, US. In the 3-month period ended in June, the automaker lost about $44,000 on every electric vehicle that it sold.
That is extraordinary.
Incredible numbers.
Yeah, massive numbers. All right, up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview with a chat with Centre Group CEO Elliot Rusanow.
Yep, all about the Centre result from a couple of days ago, how the company's performing post the tragedy in Bondi Junction, of course, and what they're doing with the David Jones stores that are closing down.
Yeah, and that is thanks to our friends at Ausbiz, Australia's leading provider of live and on-demand video of the latest news in Australian business, markets, economy and startups. Sign up at ausbiz.com.au. It is free. And you know what else is free, Sean?
What else, Michael?
The Fear and Greed weekly newsletter, which comes out every Wednesday. I know it's a Friday, but there has never been a better time than right now to head along to fearandgreed.com.au and pop your email address onto the list, because it means then next Wednesday, mid-morning, you will get the newsletter and you will just be inundated in your inbox with Sean's opinions on all kinds of different business stories, and it is proving against all the odds to be very popular, Sean.
Against all the odds? I think that's probably being a bit harsh.
Oh, just thought I'd slip that in to see if you're still listening.
Yeah, no, I was. Oh, okay. But it was about me. Of course I was listening.
Oh, good. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Friday, the 23rd of August, 2024. Make sure you're following the podcast and please join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.